She was with the president yesterday. Angel Mom Sabine Durden with us today. Then he may be about the only prominent Democrat not running for president, at least not yet. But Maryland Senator Ben Cardin has some ideas what message this crowded Democratic field should send. So does that mean keeping talk of impeachment off the table? Then count Al Green out, because the Democratic congressman isn't waiting for the president's term to end. He wants it to end now. And Green isn't going quietly into the night. He's with us to shout impeachment to the world today. Wonder how Beto O'Rourke feels about all of this fuss, not over impeaching the president, but a certain dig from the president, who was quick to make fun of the former Texas congressman, not over something that O'Rourke said, but how he said it. Focus on his hands. What if I told you it may be a sign for the Trump folks that they're worried? Then the consensus says that third-party challengers go nowhere. Apparently, Starbucks founder Howard Schultz isn't buying it. Just like the consensus also says Republicans who challenge a sitting president make fools of themselves doing it. Apparently, former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld isn't buying it either. You heard from Schultz, who sure sounds like he's running when we talked to him this week. Now hear from Bill Weld, who already is running, kinda, and he's talking to us this day, the day before St. Patrick's Day, where it really doesn't matter in the Big Apple because the big parade is today. Yet today, I guess they figured it's never really too early to celebrate, and they're guessing you don't have to be Irish to be wearing the green as long as you are flashing the green. Because more Americans than ever are feeling grand about their finances and even more grand about their future. But does that make them feel more grand about the president? Why, some of our top money pros say it's already happening, and more than just a wee bit. All on the show that's more than a wee bit fun and a lot more than a wee bit informative, where all the roads rise up to meet you and all those nasty winds are at your back. All right. I'll stop with the Irish thing. Time to do our thing. Neil Cavuto, and my staff already told me, Neil, don't even think of your Irish accent. It's pathetic. I will use it a lot during the next 2 hours because, believe it or not, here in the Big Apple, even though St. Patrick's Day, as I said, is tomorrow, they're already preparing for it today. The big parade is today, just one block over behind us on Fifth Avenue. Chicago, they're getting ready to dye the water green. They do that every St. Patrick's Day. I don't know why, but they like to. That's fine. We're on top of all of that. Also on top of a busy news day where a lot of the candidates are crisscrossing the country right now, hoping for their own little version of the luck of the Irish. We're keeping track of all 300 Democrats running for the Oval Office. It's not really 300, as you know. It is 200. All right, we're keeping track of that because a couple of the people and the names that have been mentioned and their thoughts are coming up in this very big show. First out, I want to thank David Oasman, who was here in my place last week. Thank you, David, for your hard work. Now to the hard work of those candidates crisscrossing the country, trying to become the next president of the United States. Jillian Turner, following all those campaigns. Jillian.
Neil, good morning. I think it's actually closer to 175.
I think you're right about that.
Mm-hmm. So former Congressman Beto O'Rourke is at the 2020 campaign trail running this week. He launched his presidential bid on the cover of Vanity Fair's April issue and then headed to Iowa. From his native El Paso, Texas, O'Rourke told Vanity Fair, quote, "I want to be in it. Man, I'm just born to be in it."
And I think my experience, the way in which I've served, the way in which I've campaigned in Texas, what I'm learning from you here in Iowa, leads me to be able to help lead this country at its moment of truth.
O'Rourke has so far impressed the media and Hollywood, but has declined to take a definitive stance on top-tier policy issues for Democrats, like the Green New Deal, Medicare for All, impeaching President Trump, and even marginal tax rates.
Yes, I think.
How much?
I think corporations should be asked to pay a greater share into the success of this country. I don't know what the levels should be at, but I know that the tax cuts from nearly 2 years ago of $2 trillion at a time that we had $21 trillion in debt.
He joins an already packed Democratic lineup, including candidates like Andrew Yang, who declared well over a year ago, and frontrunners like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who threw their hats into the ring only in the last 2 weeks. And then, of course, there's former Vice President Joe Biden. His closest friends in Washington say he's gearing up to run and declare his candidacy any second now. The White House rife with reports this week that even President Trump is worried about Biden's star power and how his candidacy would shake up the race. So far, Biden has been a hit in nearly every 2020 poll. Neil?
All right, Jillian, thank you very, very much. Well, it's sometimes interesting to read the president's read on all of these candidates going, and he had something interesting to say about Beto O'Rourke that might be kind of curious. Take a look.
I'm running to serve you as President of the United States of America. Thank you. Good. Thank you all for having us out. Really, really grateful. Thank you.
I think he's got a lot of hand movement. I've never seen so much hand movement. I said, is he crazy or is that just the way he acts?
You know, for the life of me, I have been watching video of O'Rourke, and I focus on the hand movement, and that's the idea, to sidetrack you, to maybe divide your attention a little bit. The president also has a pattern with this to single out opponents and sort of put them in a kind of a one name or sort of a one characterization. He's done this throughout and did this throughout the 2016 campaign, particularly when he was running for the Republican nomination all the way up to Hillary Clinton. Take a look.
Lion Ted. Lion, L-Y-I-N apostrophe. We can't say it the right way. We got to go Lion, Lion Ted.
Let's say, this is impossible to imagine. Low energy Jeb Bush becomes president. Hello, I'm Jeb.
It's Rubio. That's what it is.
You know, I talked to a couple of political strategists, the humor notwithstanding, and they did cite the fact that when the president sees someone creeping up on him in the polls or someone who could be a threat, he does this sort of thing. And it's a strategy that has worked for him, or they believe that has worked for him in the past. And maybe by singling out Beto O'Rourke or saying something about Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, you know the drill, he'll put them away before they have a chance to develop. Let's get the read from GOP pollster Chris Wilson. We've also got Jessica Tarloff with us, Kat Timpf with us. Kat, what do you think of that?
I don't think he is necessarily afraid of Beto so much as he just couldn't resist the opportunity when he saw. I mean, the hands, I'm focused on the hands now. Just like,
you know,
I can't.
To be fair, I can't get my eyes off that.
Well,
you know?
no, just like I can't see Marco Rubio without being like, oh, there's little Marco, or Jeb without being like, oh, there's low energy Jeb. I just hope to God that we do not have another election where there's an entire news cycle and then another entire news cycle and then about hands.
All right. Well,
I've had enough of talking about hands after 2016.
But do you get a sense, Jessica, that the president's worried then about Beto O'Rourke? You don't do this to people you don't think are going to be a problem. You remember Ted Cruz and he were getting along just swimmingly until Cruz was rising in the polls. Cruz looked like a threat. And then all of a sudden it was Lion Ted and all
Lion Ted and Ugly Heidi, which was definitely the highlight of his disgustingness during that campaign. Do I think that he feels like Beto is a real challenge? I'm not sure, but he certainly recognizes celebrity, and that's what Beto has going for him. He's on the cover of Vanity Fair. He was running a statewide election that had donors from, I think, all 50 states. He ended up with it when he was
citing. Wasn't that more contempt for Ted Cruz on the part of Democratic Establishment trying to, you know?
But there were definitely a few viral videos of Beto when he was defending the right to kneel, when he was talking about immigration, his rally in El Paso when he skateboards, Whataburger, all of it.
Dental hygienist.
I think that the dental one backfired. But I do want to point out that the person who doesn't have a nickname is Nancy Pelosi, and he definitely sees her as a threat. I've always found it interesting that he will not go there with her. He just says, you know, Brian, Chuck, and Nancy. Maybe after this.
All right, Chris, what do you think?
Well, I think Kat's right. I don't think it has anything to do with him being afraid of Beto yet. That may ultimately be the case. It's more just Donald Trump has a way of dominating a news cycle. But if O'Rourke thinks it's bad whenever Donald Trump is making fun of his hands, wait till he finds out that O'Rourke played a guitar in a furry outfit. And then he finds out what a furry is. This is going to go way off the rails fast. You think hand news cycles are bad? Then we're going to have furry news cycles.
Oh, boy.
I think
but if you get to debating the name thing, but I guess we're feeding the beast, right? I mean, that then all of a sudden it gets to be the distraction the president wants, right?
It is, and you're talking about O'Rourke's hands rather than the fact that, well, really, what you had over the last 24 hours of Beto O'Rourke was pretty much one of the worst rollouts I've ever seen in a presidential campaign, and I think that's because he had so much build-up leading into it. It may be almost
unfair.
Unfair
That's coming from other Democrats who are sick of the attention he's getting.
He hasn't really talked about policy. Whenever he's asked about policy, he's like, well, that's up to the voters.
Well, he's never talked about policy.
And his website
wait a minute. What do you mean by?
Well, what I mean is, it's fine to use your hands, Neil.
Sure,
I think it really is fine.
We're all gesticulators.
We're all,
yes,
we all are. I am too, and I've not.
But I
so
read more
the
the criticism of Beto O'Rourke coming from Democrats who didn't fancy the stardom that he's getting. Right? They're a little envious of it.
I don't actually think it's that. I think there is an arrogance to I was born to do it, for instance. And what's going on where he says, I realize that it's not a popular time to be a white man in this party running for office, so I'll make sure to surround myself with people of color and with women. And
did you find that offensive?
I didn't find it offensive. I thought it was better that he acknowledged it than not. I'm all for everyone getting in the race, but there are people who have been working their tails off for a lot longer, who have records to run on, and who are diving deep into policy. He also said, I don't prepare. I get up there and I speak from the heart, and I tell you, Kamala Harris doesn't do that.
But neither does the president when he gives a speech. I mean, he wings it. He's very effective at it.
I think his winging it only goes so far because he knows what he wants to say. He knows he wants to talk about the wall.
These are the bullet points.
These are the bullets.
By the way,
and no matter what
Beto has that. He knows his bullet points, right?
Not in the same way, but he doesn't have 4 years of having a base that wants to hear.
You're right about it. Chris, I think Republicans though underestimate Beto at the peril. I mean, they were saying, and that was the consensus view. Barack Obama had only been a senator a couple of years. He's running for the highest office in the land. And, the last guy who lost a Senate race and went on to win the White House was a fellow named Abraham Lincoln. Now, I am not comparing these two at all. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But history is a way of just sort of making fun of those who kind of...
It does, but I think to Jessica's point, she's right. You've got, if I'm Cory Booker or Kamala Harris right now, I'm really angry about the way the attention's getting. But the other people who are angry right now are Texas Democrats, because he spent more time now campaigning for Democrats for election in Iowa than he did in Texas. He did not help Democrats statewide in Texas. And in fact, whenever he was
very confident he could tip that state blue.
Well, there is a lot of reasons why what happened in Texas in 2018 happened. Some of them had to do with O'Rourke. A lot of it had to do with, that's where I think Republicans should not underestimate. He put together a very solid organization. He understands how to run a campaign. He's an indefatigable campaigner.
Do you think he could tip it blue? That the state is heading?
I don't think that he could. I think it's so interesting, the kind of, it's not just confidence so much as arrogance to say I was born to do this after you didn't do it. Yeah. That's what's interesting.
But why also wouldn't you run against John Cornyn in 2020 if you have built this base of support in Texas?
Because he was born to do it. You didn't see that?
I did. I saw it many times.
I'm done with the hand thing. I'm done with all of that thing. And later on, I'll be doing my Irish accent thing. But I do want to pay attention from talking about whether Texas goes blue to green everywhere today, before St. Paddy's Day. This is the scene now in Chicago at the River. Green every year. There you go. That's all you need to know. It's before St. Patrick's Day, but the Irish, it's really never too early to celebrate. More to this. All right, the president casting his first veto of his presidency here, and already Democrats are promising they're going to fight it, maybe override it. The numbers don't seem to be there for the moment. Let's go to Garrett Tenney in Washington with the latest. Hey, Garrett.
Neil, good morning to you. President Trump says he did not have a problem with the 12 Senate Republicans who voted against his emergency declaration, though that is largely because they did not have enough votes to override his veto. On Friday in the Oval Office, surrounded by law enforcement and angel families, the president issued his first veto and insisted there is an invasion across the southern border which poses a national security threat to the United States.
Consistent with the law and the legislative process designed by our founders, today I am vetoing this resolution. Congress has the freedom to pass this resolution, and I have the duty to veto it, and I'm very proud to veto it. And I'm very proud, as I said, of a lot of Republican senators that were with me. And I'm also very proud of the House. The Republicans in the House voted overwhelmingly in favor of a secure border.
The House is expected to hold a vote to try and override the president's veto on March 26, though that is not expected to have anywhere close to the 2/3 votes to pass. The legal battle over the president's emergency declaration, though, is far from over. 20 states have filed a lawsuit against the president, which could block him from accessing about $3 billion of those military funds in his emergency declaration. Neil?
All right, Garrett, thank you very much. Well, Senator Ben Cardin, a Democrat from Maryland, was among the majority of senators, 59 in all, who voted against the president using this emergency authority. 12 Republicans similarly voted that way, and that surprised a lot of folks. Senator, good to have you.
Neil, it's always good to be on your show. Thank you.
Same here, sir. Let me get your reaction to the president saying the votes just aren't there to override me.
Well, Neil, for those of us who oppose the president, it's more about the constitutional issue here, the president taking the power of the people's Congress. We specifically acted on the border security issue. We voted the way we did. Now the president, through executive orders, trying to change that. So I think for many of us, it was not really about the border wall. It was more about the constitutional responsibilities of the legislative branch of government and the executive taking over that power.
Do you think there is a crisis at the border, that it is an emergency?
I don't think it comes within the definition of the executive power of the president in an emergency situation. This is a situation that's been building for a long time. Congress specifically acted. The president didn't like the way we acted, but we did act, and we are the legislative branch of government. So, no, I don't think it qualifies as an emergency for the use of executive power.
Senator, it's always good to have you. You come on this show a lot, and we do appreciate that. But Bill Maher had an interesting view of some of your Democratic colleagues who are reticent to do so, particularly those who avoid this network like the plague. I want you to react. This is from Bill Maher on HBO yesterday.
You want to be in the big leagues, but you refuse to ever play an away game? You don't like the questions that Fox News might ask, so you're deciding to not take any questions at all? How very Trump of you. This is a fundamental problem with the Democratic Party. They look weak, running from a fight when they should be in there throwing punches. Republicans never shy away from coming on this show, and they come with a smile on their face, despite knowing that the only people in the crowd cheering them on are the 3 campaign aides they brought with them. Democrat and Republican said Fox News was their main source of campaign news. You have to get inside the bubble.
What do you think of that, Senator?
Neil, I love a good debate, and I thank you for giving me the time to come on your show. I think different views are important. That's part of our democratic system. We believe people should debate the issues. We shouldn't be afraid to debate the issues. So I thank you for making time for people that have my type of views, different than perhaps the mainstream on Fox, a chance to be on your show. So thank you.
Well, it's because you have the courage of your convictions. People can agree or disagree. I just wonder, given the fact that the official party position to not appear on Fox or have any debates on Fox, do you think that will come back to hurt them? I'm not being provincial or territorial in my view here, so I'm just saying that for the party, do you think that would be a mistake?
I really do think we should participate on all news networks. So I happen to believe it's good to appear on different shows. I appreciate the opportunity I've had on Fox. I've been on your Sunday show, and I appreciate the way that Chris Wallace handles those interviews. So I think it's important for everyone to be able to hear different views.
All right. Just tell them we don't bite, Senator, as you know. But it's always good having you, sir, and I appreciate it. Over these many years, Senator Ben Cardin of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Democrat.
Thank you, Neil.
Of the fine state of Maryland. All right. You know about the shooting already in New Zealand. What you may not know is the video of it, video from the shooter himself. It's still out there. And all the social media companies that vowed that they would take it down, they tried. What if I told you they can't? All right, we're learning a little bit more about the suspect in that New Zealand massacre that killed 49 people. The very latest from Ryan Chilcote, who joins us right now in London. Ryan.
Yeah, good morning, Neil. In fact, we're learning a lot more about the gunman. For one, the police have identified him, something we're not doing on Fox News just yet as a matter of company policy. And the suspect has appeared in court in Christchurch, New Zealand. Now, the authorities tell us that he is 28 years old and that he is a citizen of Australia. They also say, and we know, that before he entered those two mosques and opened fire, I should just remind you, on men, women, and children, he published a 74-page hate-infused manifesto on social media, and we've learned today he emailed that manifesto to the Prime Minister of New Zealand. In it, he describes himself as a white supremacist seeking to avenge terrorist attacks in Europe that had been perpetrated by Muslims. Just to remind you, at least 49 people were killed in the attack. Another 39 people still remain hospitalized, including about 11 in intensive care who are still fighting for their lives. Needless to say, memorials right around the world still underway, still continuing for the people both in the hospitals and that passed away in that attack. Now, the shooter did not only use social media to post his manifesto, as you probably know. The attack itself was also teased, if you will, on Twitter, and the attacker live streamed his attack on Facebook. Facebook says, for their part, that they moved quickly to both remove that feed and to remove the suspect's accounts. But there's obviously a lot of attention on how he used social media and how those social media companies responded. Neil?
All right, Ryan, thank you very much, Ryan Chilcote. In the meantime, as Ryan was pointing out, this was on social media. In fact, the killer telegraphing a lot of this on social media as well, long before he live streamed it pretty much to the world. And again, Facebook and some of the others, Instagram, Twitter, saying they did try to take this down, but once many of the users, thousands of them, record it and all and share it among their colleagues, friends, whatever, it goes viral, and it's still out there. Fox Business Network's Lauren Simonetti. We've got Fox News contributor Gary Kalpom, CPA market analyst Dan Geltrude. You know, Lauren, they can't control us. It's pretty clear they can't control
I wish I had a better answer for you. It's depressing.
Yeah.
Millions and millions of dollars on human moderators, on artificial intelligence, and what can they do? For the live streaming part of social media, they can do what we do here at Fox News and other TV stations, put a delay on it. But it's just
you don't know when you
so
put two and two
hard
together, though.
to
This one
police.
started peacefully enough, or at least you didn't believe what you were hearing. Then obviously it morphed into something far more tragic. What do you do, Dan?
I think what's most disturbing about this is that Facebook didn't detect it at all. Facebook was actually notified by the New Zealand police.
Right, that's true.
So what went wrong here in terms of checks and balances? They have 15,000 people monitoring what's going on with these types of things for keywords and actions, and yet they still didn't pick it up. And now once it's out there, Neil, as you said, you cannot unring this bell.
Yeah, you know, how many? They have almost a couple billion users worldwide?
When you have 15,000 people that are just doing nothing but monitor at Facebook and a total of 30,000 but billions of users, the odds are just not in your favor. There's a simple problem here. It gets taken down, somebody puts it back up. It gets taken down, somebody puts it back up.
So not only that, it's one thing to record it, but if you share that with a friend or something, then it just multiplies it.
Even
when they do take it.
Right, and then you got the dark web, and God only knows where that is and what that is and who's involved. And again, this video was made to go viral by this guy. And guess what? He has gotten his way, and I doubt it's ever going to be gone off of the web, because once it's there, it's like cement.
Yeah. You know, Lauren, too, what's been raised is that will encourage others to use social media to do even more gruesome things.
And that's why police said, please don't share this. If you've seen this video, don't share it, because you're just inspiring other copycats.
But apparently tens of
other
thousands
terrorists. And it's so easy to find. You can even, if you're worried that, you know, it'll be shared, you can take a video of it on your own phone, and then you have it on your device. Unfortunately,
Can they disband you? I was talking to some of your younger staff members who know all of this far better than I, but who were saying that if you do share something like this, they can just take you off as a user, but you can quickly re-sign as a different user.
Yes, you can. But to Gary's point about going on the dark web, I mean, nobody's monitoring that, and this stuff is out there forever. And now what we see is Facebook being under enormous public and political pressure. And probably now, we've already seen with some executives exiting Facebook, you're going to have Mark Zuckerberg even more so coming to the forefront, gain control of his company.
But he can't get out of his own way. Another idea that's been bandied about, be careful, the government stepping in to fix things. Stop live streaming. Make it a delay, to Lauren's point, or push it back even further. That's going to be news to a lot of folks who don't want to do that, particularly young people, the core users of this stuff when it comes to gaming, et cetera.
It defeats Facebook's purpose on what they're trying to do with live streaming. Everybody has their own little TV show and their own little episode, so I don't think that's going to end. Look, this is not the first time it's going to happen, and unfortunately it's going to happen again. There are dozens, hundreds of thousands of websites where you can put the word gruesome under their title, and for whatever reason, I hate to put it in this term, but it almost sells for people to go and to see these things on the web, and that's why it stays out there. When there's a demand, it gets supplied.
It's so out of control that the companies can't handle it.
They
What does that
cannot.
tell you? Guys, thank you all very much. They'll be back in the next hour. In the meantime, you know already about the college admission scam. What you don't know about the lawsuits, not from those who are lawyering up right now, but from those whose kids never got in, who are lawyering up even more. Get to this.
Back to
All right, they're calling it the college scam that now gets bigger and bigger. Just now we're learning that UC Berkeley was named in a college admissions scandal where a number of parents were working all the angles they could to make sure that their kid got into that school by any means possible, among many other schools that drew in the likes of Laura Loughlin, who was dropped from Hallmark this past week over this, and a host of others. Let's get to read on all of it from Andy Lockwood. Andy is one of those who help you try to get your kid into a school the right way, the legal way, the moral and ethical way. How to Pay Wholesale for College is the book. He also knows firsthand and personally William Rick Singer, at least he knew him some years back, the guy who was the mastermind behind this scam. Not Andy, who's with us now. I'm talking about William Rick Singer. Good to see you again.
Thanks for having me back.
What is going on here? And just as you said last time you were with us, you're going to hear more names drop, you're going to hear more schools drop, you're going to hear more details about this. This seems to be a lot bigger than we earlier thought.
I think it's bigger. I mean, I've heard rumors and innuendo, for years about people, hiring people to get in the back door, the side door. As you said, I met Rick Singer about 9 years ago.
Was he in the capacity he's in now, or was in now, back then?
Yeah, well, to my knowledge, he was in the same field as I was, legal college advising. And
when you say legal college, what do you do? I mean, explain.
We coach kids through the process. So there's a difference between polishing and fictionalizing someone's application. So polishing is advising them on the right extracurriculars and the courses to take and the summer activities and coaching them through writing the essays, not writing them for them, and also advising them on tests to take and things like that. Coaching.
Did you use Photoshop in any case?
No Photoshop.
Some of these were so bizarre where
in my mind, to spending $6 million on an endowment or funding an endowment and getting your kid in. But, of course, if you start lying and photoshopping, paying proctors and SAT tutors to take tests for you, that's definitely a little egregious.
I was talking yesterday, Andy, to a former admissions director at MIT, a very tough school to get into. I think they accept fewer than 4 out of...
I've heard of it.
4 out of 100 there. And he was saying if there were athletic scholarships involved, you would depend on the advice of a coach or an athletic director. Nothing nefarious there. And he was saying if there were athletic scholarships involved, you would depend on the advice of a coach or an athletic director. Nothing nefarious is brought up on MIT, I might point out, or such deals there. But it does make schools re-examine that relationship, right? Does the coach have a vested interest? Does the athletic director have a vested interest? What?
Well, MIT is a very good example. They actually don't give scholarships, but they do help you. You can help yourself get in if you have some other type of talent. So really competitive schools like MIT and Harvard and Yale and Ivies and lesser type schools, they will reserve roughly 2/3 of their slots for non-academic purposes. Meaning,
2/3?
Some people think it's as much as 80%.
You're kidding me.
And that includes athletes who are recruited, legacies, people whose parents went there, underrepresented minorities, low-income families. So it's a whole bigger group who gets special preference. I don't know if you followed the whole lawsuit with Harvard, but that's what this is about.
Right.
Is college supposed to be a meritocracy, or are there other sort of parts of the institutional agenda of each college that come into play here? And that's what that is. With MIT, they favor recruited athletes, but you still have to be a super smart guy with like 800 on every test you've ever taken, or that type of thing.
You know what's kind of weird about it, though? I can see if that's the battle to get your kid into MIT, if that's the battle to get into Harvard or Yale. But there were a couple of the schools mentioned, I think University of San Diego. I don't know anything about the school, and please, I'm not meaning to trash the school or San Diego, lovely city. But working the angles to get and force your kid in there doing nefarious things, I'm thinking there's a 50% approval rate there.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny stuff, I mean, about this whole scandal. But yeah, they admit 50% of their kids. So why would you stroke a check for several $100,000 to get your kid into a school that most kids, or half the kids literally, can get into? I don't understand. It's all about status. So apparently that school carries enough of a status for people to want to help their kids get in.
But what did this singer do and say? Like, how would he get parents to, and when he talked to them, to get their kids into the school?
So when I met him, he had a very sort of magnetic personality. I mentioned before, he got kind of crazy eyes, almost like a cult, type of guy. Yeah, he's very persuasive and very, mesmerizing almost. But my understanding was that he would, start working with the family and then say, hey, by the way, maybe after 8 or 9 meetings, by the way, if you, where do you want to go to school? I don't know. Well, how about USC? Oh, okay. And if you want to get in there, here's what has to happen. And then he would then line up all the various, steps of the scheme.
Do you know what his batting percentage was? How many of his clients got into the schools?
Yeah, I don't know, but I would suspect very close to 100%.
So
the worst,
someone paying him millions of dollars, this was apparently the case in a couple of cases, that wouldn't be too far outside your surprise zone.
No, not at all. The one case I heard where he didn't succeed 100% was the Stanford sailing guy who got into Stanford but was deferred for a year. So he was still admitted, but he had to take a year off. And then apparently he said, I'm going to go somewhere else, which was hilarious.
Wouldn't it
to me
become
also.
obvious if all of a sudden that guy says, I'm really not interested in sailing anymore?
Yeah, that is obvious. So is the soccer recruit who played in 9th grade and then not 10th, 11th, and 12th. It's, that's why I think these colleges have to be implicated at some point. If you're an athletic director or someone else in the administration, you have to notice this stuff.
Yeah, no school has yet, but you're saying it's just a matter of time.
It has to be. It defies logic.
Andy Lockwood, thank you very, very much. We're following that. Also following that are some building crowds, not for parades. I'm talking at the nation's major airports as the spring break season unofficially begins across the country. You're going to be waiting for that plane. And let's just say the fact that so many Boeing planes are presently grounded is not going to make that wait any easier after this. Here for flying. Anyway, the unofficial start of the the spring vacation season, and complicated by, of course, the grounding of all of these Boeing 737 MAX planes. So now what? What are you looking forward to or not looking forward to? Let's go to Fox's Jackie Heinrich, who's at LaGuardia International with the very latest. Jackie.
Well, Neil, unfortunately, whether or not your travel was planned on a 737 MAX or not, it might be impacted because of the grounding. That's because all these airlines are having to kind of shift things around and absorb those canceled and grounded flights into other legs of the trip. So it's like a giant puzzle. Overall, though, the impact is no greater than what a snowstorm would be. But some areas are being disproportionately affected. For instance, American's MAX 8 planes were mostly used on flights to and from its Miami hub. And Hawaii Visitors and Convention Bureau says nearly 2,000 passengers fly on MAX jets to Hawaii each day. It's a problem, especially for some spring break travel destinations. The good news, though, for those travelers is some airlines are replacing the MAX planes with bigger, nicer planes. So travelers heading from LA to Hawaii on United are getting upgraded to their Polaris business class in the 777. And some routes that were affected by the grounding have multiple flights per day, so the impact is minimal. All the airlines said they're finding ways to minimize that impact on travelers, and they're looking at each route individually. Now, out of American 6,700 flights per day, 85 were on a 737 MAX. United completes 4,700 flights per day, and only 40 were on a MAX, and 39 of Southwest's 4,100 flights per day were grounded. So overall, it's a small percentage of their entire fleet. The one airline, though, that's not impacted by this at all is Delta. They don't have any 737 MAX planes. Southwest comes in with the most at 34. Air Canada and American tie for second at 24, and United has 14. Now, all of the airlines said the greatest impact happened right when that announcement came down on Thursday, because, of course, they couldn't take off after that. And
is impeachable. Now, if there are people
well, you
who
have
don't
to
think
prove
that bigotry is
though,
impeachable,
right? You have to prove bigotry. You have to prove the kind of stuff that you outlined there, and it's a loose standard, right?
Well, no, it's not a loose standard. If it's a loose standard,
you don't like the way the president
Johnson
speaks. You don't like the terms he's used about Haiti and elsewhere, right?
No, I don't like the way he puts that into policy, bigotry into policy.
All right, that was Congressman Al Green, and he started a firestorm here, not only among Democrats and Republicans, but everyone, saying either you go fast or you go slow. How do they deal with the impeachment issue? Just take a sampling here.
Well, I think Nancy's right. I think that be a huge distraction without the probability of success.
I fully concur with what the Speaker said regarding impeachment.
We're beginning the process to look at some of these alleged claims that he's impeachable offenses.
I don't think she said now's not the time to call for impeachment. She said she didn't want to move forward right now with impeachment.
We are not governing with a focus on impeachment.
A lot of members in the caucus have a different opinion, but that's why we caucus.
Do you have a different opinion?
I happen to, yeah.
I keep reminding people, I don't think it's appropriate to talk about impeachment.
All right, back with us, the man who started all of this fuss, who said that Congressman Al Green couldn't make waves, the Democratic Texas congressman, joins us right now. Good to have you back, Congressman.
It's an honor to be with you, Mr. Cavuto. If I may just say this, I'm not angry with leadership. It's not about leadership or any of the persons who spoke. This is about the country I love and maintaining it, the democracy that we have, and protecting the republic.
All right, well, that leadership, to the point, sir, they don't think that this is the time to do it, and it takes away from the focus on 2020, you say?
Well, I think that they're entitled to opinions. We can walk and chew gum and do other things at the same time. This does not prevent us from going forward with all the many activities that committees have embarked upon. I just simply happen to believe that this country deserves an opportunity to have the question of whether bigotry emanating from the presidency is something that is impeachable, and the only way we'll find out is with a vote.
You know, I talked to a lot of lawyers on this, Congressman, who might respect you and your position, but when it comes to high crimes and misdemeanor, they just say you're out to lunch. That is not an issue that, first of all, is provable, and secondly, would be of a degree that you would kick someone out of the White House. You say?
Well, a couple of points. It apparently was provable to some extent because Mr. Steve King, my colleague in Congress, has been removed from his committee assignments. He's been condemned for some of his activities and some of the things that he said. Also, if these persons that you talk to are correct, and there are others who would differ with them, I assure you, there are scholars who would differ with them, but if these persons were correct, then Andrew Johnson would not have been impeached for simply speaking ill of Congress. High crimes and misdemeanors. Let's look at the word misdemeanor. It means misdeed. Even today it still does. When the Constitution was written and Article 2, Section 4 was placed in it, it meant misdeeds then. So,
all right, so you were for, to make it clear, when Bill Clinton was impeached for lying about a relationship with an intern, you were for that being deemed a high crime and a misdemeanor, and an impeachable one at that, right?
I was for the Congress of the United States doing what it's supposed to, and that is go forward and work its will.
No, that's not what I asked. Did you think he should have been impeached over that?
I think that he should have been impeached because he was impeached.
Okay, no, but that he should have left office.
Impeachment is the province of the Congress. It is the province of the Senate to determine whether he leaves office.
No, you're quite right, and that went nowhere when it did go to the Senate. The reason why I mentioned those points, though, is that others think you're widening this definition of an impeachable offense, that if it were to happen to a Democratic president or happen to anyone in the future, it would be a loose and slippery slope, and we'd be impeaching presidents all the time.
Well, to quickly finish what I was saying, the Senate did not find that he was guilty. I think the Senate worked its will. I agree with the decision of the Senate. Now, in terms of whether this would have an adverse impact on the future, I think we're having an adverse impact on the present. Mr. Cavuto, you I consider a dear friend. I quite candidly, I like you. But I must tell you this now. If President Obama had done some of the things that this president has done, he would have been impeached. Republicans would not engage in a debate over whether or not a president can do some of the things that have been done. They would move forward. And I think that that's what we must do. But if we can't do it together, then we'll do it alone. This is what I believe, and this is where I stand.
All right. We'll see what leadership does. Congressman, always appreciate you coming on this
Thank
show
you.
and talking to us. Representative Al Green, beautiful state of Texas. He's a Democrat. In the meantime, more about that angel mom supporting President Trump's veto bill to block a national emergency over the border wall. She did it for one reason, she says, and that one reason was her son.
After months